Over to you.
All right, thanks, Amanda. And on the topic of really sort of creating content and, to feed your attendees, not the other way around, we also need to do the same within our own teams, right? To build high performance teams. And who better to talk about that than Melissa Lamson with Lamson Consulting. Now, Melissa, you have over 20 years of experience in growing leadership and sort of bridging cultures within huge organizations like MTV and LinkedIn, just to name a few. So let's talk about your experience doing that and how to really create a high-level performing team.
Thanks a lot for having me. Yes, one of the keys to really creating a high-performing team is having strong leadership. And we talk in the session today live about how leaders can develop those qualities to be really successful in managing and pulling their teams through the different stages of teams.
Yeah, and there's a method to do that you really sort of dive into, and you'll do that later this afternoon in your session, which is not streamed. So tell the audience about that method and how they can really do that within their own organizations.
Yes, well, I use an oldie but a goodie. Bruce Tuckman developed a stages of teams model called the Tuckman model of stages of team. And we go through forming, storming, norming, and performing. And so we'll go through all of those so that you know how to assess your team in each of those stages, and then also what are the methods within each of those stages so that you're able to really get your team through quickly and to the high-performing stage. Because you really want to be able to create and sustain that high-performing team.
Yeah, and with the times changing so quickly, and especially with the gaps in generation.
That's right.
How do you keep track of your team's growth and making sure that they're constantly performing at the best ability that they can?
It requires a lot of hands-on leadership, and then of course that's more difficult when we're working virtually, right, and remotely. So just really keeping in touch with people, building those relationships, ensuring that the individual vision is linked with the company vision, with the team vision overall. Once you have all those goals and objectives aligned, then that really helps the team see the big picture, and then they're able to stay on track towards that high performance.
Now, I'm sure all of the leaders out there are thinking, well, you know what, I just don't have that much time on my hands, because it does, take time out of your business in order to sit with your team and do that. But it's a very important part of business, right? So dive into the, time efficiency and how they can really make use of that.
Well, it's interesting because in my time management course for managers, I talk about what is the appropriate amount of time that you spend on managing people versus doing the actual tasks or your individual contributor work as a manager. And it's really important that you're spending at least over 50% of your time with the people that you're managing and leading, to ensure that they're really up to speed, that they understand the clarity of roles and responsibilities, that they're really able to remove obstacles, that you're mediating conflict, for example. And that will really help push that team towards that high performance. So I usually say, if you spend the time up front, you're going to save a lot of time in the back end, because cleaning up a mess is also going to be time consuming, right?
Sure, and that reminds me, I remember listening to Kat Cole, who is now the president of Focus Brands, but at the time she was the president and CEO of Cinnabon. And she talked about how she spent her first 6 months as the CEO of this massive company in the factories with the cashiers in the stores, really sort of like you said, spending all of her time learning about, well, what is the customer, what do they like, what don't they like, because who better to talk to than your front end, employees that are really working. So I just thought that was such an interesting point and really goes with what you're saying.
It is the best practice, and honestly, it's astounding how many leaders don't really know that is necessary. They sort of assume if I have a bunch of really good players, and smart people and high performers in other projects, that if I bring them all together in this project and I just sort of let them run with it, that autonomy is going to automatically work. And that doesn't necessarily always happen, right? Because people still have to go through that forming phase in the stages of teams, where they have to come together and they have to understand different personalities and different objectives, different motivations, right? And that'll be really key to getting that team working well together.
Yeah, and what about for newer managers coming into established organizations where, you sort of have to build your respect and reputation a little bit, but how do you maneuver that?
Yeah, well, I say act like an anthropologist. Come in and do a lot of observing, a lot of listening, a lot of question asking before you really just jump to starting to tell people what to do and how they should be doing it. No matter how much experience you have, it really requires a lot of time just to get to know people and get to know the situation. And that's the best way to establish credibility with the individuals, particularly if they have been high performing. You want to make sure that you honor that, right? And show that you get that.
Yeah, and then what happens when, you have a high-performing team and then you see sort of the results start to suffer a little bit? Where do you go in and sort of okay, what happened here? What did we do wrong? Where did we go wrong? And how can we fix this now to get them
Right.
back to that level?
Right. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail in the session, but I think it's just really key to be able to assess, where is the team? And the important thing is that even if a couple people, for example, the storming stage of teams, if there's even just a couple people that are storming or in conflict, that actually impacts the whole team. So the whole team is in storming. And so it's important to be able to just resolve that conflict, be assertive about that, ask questions, find out what the needs are so that you can solve that quickly.
Perfect, Melissa. Thank you so much. We appreciate your
Thanks,
time
Sarah.
here. And Amanda, let's check in with you.